Why do you think that I had you fill out that survey today and do the reflection? Any ideas? Why am I so interested? Because we're doing a study, and you will all be part of that study. So welcome to the Autumn 2015 Carbon Challenge.
So overall, what's going on with this project is that a team of different faculty came up with an idea for basically getting students to lose carbon.
We're going to challenge you as students and ourselves as educators to lose at least 5,000 pounds of carbon weight.
We are actually going to be with 9 other classes in Seattle and Bothell.
The research project part of it is looking at how you guys do that, or what works for you, right? Was there something about losing the carbon stuff that was interesting? Was there something that was really hard? What did you in your own place find didn't work? What did work?
We want to know how you're feeling about the environment. Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling pessimistic, right? How are you feeling?
So a lot of what we're interested in the research project is you reflecting on the experience itself. So hence the first reflection you did today is basically your baseline. Before we told you anything about the project, it's your first shot at what you think about those topics. Does that make sense?
You're welcome to contemplate lifestyle changes such as transportation and the way you use consumables, as well as more long-term sustainable changes in the home, like changing light bulbs or turning down the heat. To help you lose carbon weight, there are worksheets in the Gershon book, How to Lose 5,000 Pounds in 30 Days.
It actually tells you, like, a list. Reducing water used for washing dishes, so it talks to you about that. Washing and drying clothes efficiently, turning down the thermostat.
In 4 weeks, after we've talked about this for a while and you've kind of set things up, you will sort of pledge what it is you're going to try to change to get to that 5,000 pounds. Then, for the next 5 to 6 weeks after that, you're going to try to implement those changes. Okay? At the end, you fess up as to whether you actually pulled off all of that stuff. And again, there is no bad grade for not doing it, so there's nothing. You should be honest with what you pulled off. Sound good?
So let's move back into conversation here. Ellen kindly provided some readings for us.
I really appreciated, especially in the Mesereau reading, when he was talking about critical reflection. He defines it as challenging the validity of presuppositions in prior or earlier learning.
We teach a lot of abstract concepts in the classroom, but I really wanted to get down to the practical aspect of environmental issues.
When we teach about sustainability, we are trying to sort of intervene between what they've already learned and the practices and everything else in the surrounding culture. We're trying to show them a different way.
For those of us who are teaching a lot of environmental themed courses, I know I run into the end of my quarter and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to save the room. And so I just appreciated that sort of call for figuring out how to connect action with study and reflection. You know, I'll start the course very much thinking about who am I, what does it mean to go to a place and just be with that place, and how do I use writing to start figuring out how to express my relationship to place.
Part of what I want students to reflect on is more the analytical side of, you know, if you're talking about sustainability, how do you quantify that, right? Does it matter that we do hydropower, or does it matter that, you know, they drive a Hummer to work or whatever it happens to be? And so that's part of it. But the other part is trying to use that information, because I see students who have all the access to the science having to do with sustainability and still do the same practices and somehow justify it or don't justify it. And so to me, the idea is to start reaching students, getting them to think about, so now that I've learned about this stuff, how might that affect my decision making?
In academia, particularly, in our culture, we tend to focus very much on the head, right? Intellect. But, if you think of a human being, we're sort of head, hand and heart. So we have the ability to sort of engage actively in the world and make a difference in terms of our actual engagement physically with the world, hand. And then there's the heart part, which is a sort of emotional engagement. It'll be really interesting to see what students have to say about that and how they respond. I think it's important we're open about that dialogue, because it's really challenging what we think our role is here in the academy.
So definitely my first reaction was I didn't think it was going to be possible for me to do it.
I was kind of scared because I'm like, will I have to stop driving my car? Will I have to stop eating meat? It's terrifying a little bit.
Dang, I probably have a lot of stuff that I need to do to be less of a hyper consumer.
I didn't think I was going to take it as seriously as I did to begin with. I thought I was going to choose like a couple things and just do that for like the month and be done with it.
I was really excited because I've always been intrigued since I was little about like saving the environment and animals, but I never knew quite how to. And I think that's an issue a lot, is that we don't want to hurt the environment, we just don't know how to avoid it.
So I knew a little bit about it, but I knew it was going to be hard because actually I already do a lot at home.
And I kind of saw the challenge immediately as a new way to like take what I was already doing and like move to the next step, you know, start really stepping up the impact that I was already reducing.
My plans to reduce carbon would be the first thing I thought of was going vegetarian 5 days out of the week.
And then maybe eventually like completely become vegetarian.
It's difficult. I eat meat like all the time.
Also, I wanted to try to really reduce the amount of waste that we produce because I live in a house with 5 other people.
Recycling every day or taking shorter showers, stuff like that.
I have a strong attachment to my car, so maybe I could stop like driving so much.
And I've started making some of my own products, which is pretty exciting. We've got plans to work on some soap, and then I'm hoping to make candles this weekend.
Okay. Were you inspired by Lauren Singer when she came to talk?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
So, again, my name is Lauren Singer, and I'm here because I live a zero waste lifestyle, and I have for the past 3+ years now.
We chose Lauren because, one, she brings a really fresh perspective because she produces no trash. And that, I think, is something that really is surprising to most people, even to think that they could produce no trash.
And to some people, living zero waste is an infrastructural thing. To some people, it's a political thing. And to me, living zero waste is a personal thing. And to me, living zero waste means that I don't create any trash or any landfill trash. But I do recycle, but very minimally, because I don't really buy anything that needs to be recycled anymore. And I do compost, which is what was one of the biggest forms of trash before I started doing that.
I decided to go plastic free when I was a senior in college, just inspired by a girl that I saw making a ton of plastic trash.
And she would bring this big plastic bag full of a plastic clamshell full of food and a plastic fork and knife and a plastic water bottle and a plastic bag of chips, and it really annoyed me. And so one day after class, I went home, I opened my fridge, and I noticed that every single thing that I had in there was packaged in plastic.
And decided that, I couldn't just get mad at her. I had to actually stop being a hypocrite.
And I made a decision in that moment to just stop using plastic. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but it was like, I'm done. I couldn't just buy my way out of using plastic. I had to learn how to do a bunch of things and start making these products myself.
And from there, I learned about the whole zero waste lifestyle movement and was totally inspired.
When you hear zero waste, it seems really daunting and really impossible because it's a big umbrella term. But when you actually look at living zero waste and you break it down into its pieces, it's just a lot of little one-time or baby changes that have a long-term positive impact.
Once you make one little change, then you don't have to do things over and over.
For me, when I started out, I was learning all of these things, was inundated with information. And I was telling people, like my mom, for instance, like, Mom, you cannot drink conventional milk. Your boobs are gonna fall off. There's like pus in it. Like all this bad stuff is gonna happen. Don't do it. And she was like, you're crazy. Don't talk to me. And she totally blocked me out. By telling them how to live, no one wanted to listen to me. But when I stopped trying to tell people how to live and I actually looked at myself and stopped trying to yell at people for what they were doing, I realized that the people around me started to change. My mom started drinking organic milk. My dad started recycling more. my friends started shopping at the farmer's market. I would suggest, for me, it worked to just look at myself and ask, how can I live my day-to-day life in a way that aligns with the world that I want to see?
So today I'm going to be making a red Thai curry. And so before we begin with that, I'm actually going to make my coconut rice. Well, I was a real carnivore for a long time. So I ate beef quite a bit. I ate pork a lot. I ate a lot of bacon too. When I started doing this carbon challenge, not necessarily just with UW-Tacoma, but with the city of Tacoma, I could see it coming and I could see the change coming. So at first I cut out beef, and then I cut out beef and pork, and then I finally cut out turkey and chicken as well. And so now we're just down to a little bit of fish and lots of veggies. In this sort of push to not have plastic packaging and to eat more local foods, we've really gotten to know the co-op, and it turns out to be one of the central places that we go. So the co-op and eating healthy went hand in hand with trying to go plastic free. And when I say plastic free, I would like to stress that I think that our society has not set us up for being plastic free yet. There's just certain things that have plastic in them that my husband and we haven't been able to get away from just yet. Going to the co-op and trying to live plastic free really actually meant that we had to shift over to Whole Foods. First, I believe that if you're going to eat vegan, I think that you have to try to make it easy for yourself. So we really don't try to have in our house, we really don't try to have really complex recipes. So for this, it's a red Thai curry, and the basic ingredients are coconut milk, fresh mushrooms, green onions, and then bok choy. Well, what I like about this dish is how easy it is. The steps are basically chopping up the ingredients. So chop up all of the vegetables and you put them in a pan with the olive oil and you let them saute. You then add the red curry paste in there and you really allow it to heat up and get fragrant. And so once it gets fragrant and it begins to move around the pan, then you know it's time to open up that big can of coconut milk and dump that in and then just let it simmer. So the shift to Whole Foods has been honestly, it takes a little bit of time because what you're asking to do is really change the infrastructure of your household. So we didn't want to use plastic produce bags, where you put the apples and avocados in. We didn't want to use those anymore. But once you buy those bags on Amazon, you have them forever. And then we actually don't just shop at the co-op. We also go to our local grocery store, a bigger store, and we will still use those bags. So we still are able to be plastic free, even at some of the bigger stores. Yeah, so the tearing is something that we had to learn. We would go in and we'd actually fill up and then we'd say, oh, can you weigh this? And so they'd look at us, so that now we have it written down how much the glass itself weighs, which is almost a pound. We did go to a few stores where you can grind your own nut butters, and it was really an uphill battle. They said that they didn't know how to take the tear off and they didn't know how to do the weighing of the glass jar. When you try to become sustainable, when you try to live a life without plastic, it's really an uphill battle because the system itself and the grocery stores and everything else, our food system is not set up to be waste-free. It is set up to be very wasteful. You have to kind of commit yourself to, as Wendell Berry said, perhaps being a little bit of a contrarian and being willing to swim upstream.
I thought maybe we'd read some poems. This is Sea Stars. The sunflower star saved its grace from moonlight, sweeping the waves golden, dim mystics, supple in their swallowing of night. Who has eyes enough for this, or ears to see the red-orange hearts clinging to the continent's shelf, unbecoming all they've evolved to know about arms and the points of stars? The stars are ill, their bodies collapsing into distorted tissues, the rigid lines of constellations giving away to lesions consuming them. Ochre stars, six-armed stars, morning sun stars, leather stars, rainbow stars, Velcro stars, unpeeling their orange skins. But if a star is born from dust, a gathering cloud, is its death no more than letting go of its shape? Maybe hope is an emancipation from truth, or the spirit opening its arms to the world, permeable to starlight and the viruses that contain us for a while, or to extinction in life's warming waters.
That poem is so sad to me, and there's no way for me to say anything else about it. Like the idea of a species just melting. So as I was writing it, I was thinking in my head at the same time, I've been really thinking about the notion of hope. When I'm writing poetry, I always want to go back to it. I want the ending of the story to be represented by hope. That's my desire. As I get further through my studies and my experiences and my feelings, the more I'm not sure that the notion of hope is anything more than a story that has been built up and handed down. And I'm not sure I agree with the definition. When I wrote the line, maybe hope is an emancipation from truth, I think what I was I know what I was thinking was that maybe we need to detach this notion of hope that we have and try to find this new truth instead. Because we are already going through all of the things that we're so scared are going to happen.
Would you be pegged as a cynic?
Yeah, I know. I think about that a lot too.
I mean, if there's no hope, what is there left? I mean, what would replace or redefine hope?
For me, I don't think I'm a cynic, and I don't think I'm a pessimist. And I'm also like, what does that mean? What I think we can do is I think we can think more radically and in a more revolutionary way. And if we can get out of the box of thinking and living that we are in and come at life with a more radicalized notion of what it means to be alive, then we've got it.
I started riding my bike when I first started at UWT about 16 years ago, but it was pretty sporadic. And the reason was that I'm able to walk a block from my house and get on the bus that takes me downtown. Bus service really got infrequent after we had budget cuts several years ago. The last bus going home leaves at 6 o'clock, and a lot of times things hold me here after that. And so I just started biking more because that allowed me to set my schedule. And I found that I got here faster than I would on the bus by biking. I actually, even in the rain most of the time, I kind of enjoy biking in. It's, occasionally it's really nasty. And I really am just sopping wet when I get in. But then I feel good about the fact that I actually did it. I think it's one of those, I toughed it out and I made it in type of thing. One of the things I've seen over time in Tacoma is that there has been an increase in how many people bike. And that in itself is the huge difference that makes it easier to bike, because there's more people on the road, people may pay more attention, and it just becomes safer no matter what else you do. So the more people that get out there, the better. And one of the things that Tacoma's been doing is they've been adding bike lanes in, and bike lanes have pluses and minuses. They make it obvious that there's a place on the road for the biker. The downside is that they put it right next to the potentially opening car doors, which is, having learned how to bike in Boston, you always are wary of what's going on in the park strip along the side. So it does help still. Tacoma's moving forward on that. They're definitely improving things as they go. I always suggest is for getting going is meet up with a friend, right? Or get, somebody that's going to get you to go. So if you meet up with people, it's like exercising. If you set it in your calendar to go running every morning, you're likely on your own to stop doing it because, it's wet out or I'm tired or whatever. But if you have a friend that shows up, it's like, now you're on the hook. You don't want to leave them hanging. It also, having two bikers next to each other increases security because driver's more likely to see more than one biker. And so there's a lot of that. Plus you can learn, right? One of the things they found is that, people don't take the bus because they don't know how the bus works. And so they're afraid to be that newbie on the bus that gets yelled at because they don't know, how to use their Orca card. So the same thing goes with biking, is that people won't go just because they don't know what's the best way, or how do you avoid traffic, or what's the rules, how should you pull up at intersections and things like that. The more that we can kind of build that culture on campus, then it becomes the cool thing to do. It becomes the thing that, hey, you can join the other group of people that's doing it and have a great time. So.
The Carbon Challenge has been going well. I think the biggest challenge is actually turning down the thermostat, because I'm a naturally cold person and this has been such a struggle. And one of the easier tasks was eating meat-free. I think it's been great and more of like an adventure to find new recipes.
It's kind of hard because I live with my parents, and the way they were raised and the way they raised us, we have meat with almost every meal. Like salads are great, but salads with meat are even better because they grew up on farms, and then when my parents got married, they had a huge farm. And obviously everything was organic, and then when we moved here, they couldn't really do that.
So I found out that you can put fruit and vegetable scraps and anything like that in the yard waste bin. I didn't know that for Tacoma.
So the easiest change I could make was definitely starting to recycle, and probably composting's a little difficult just because I live in an apartment downtown and I don't really have like windows, and so like the flies just swarm into my apartment.
I'm trying to use things that I can use more than once, that can be used optimally multiple times or for longer periods. So I'm trying to cut out plastics. I'm using the same cup whenever I get coffee or tea.
One thing I found for the 5-minute showers was I don't have to wash my hair every day. And so that was one thing that was easy to do, is like, oh, I just won't wash my hair every time I shower. And that reduces my shower time like significantly because I have a lot of hair.
I've been driving a lot more cautious. I used to just go as fast as I could, like most of the time. But now I like keep it under like 2 revs as much as I can. And trying to get my family to do the stuff. They made fun of me for eating tofu when everybody else is eating chicken, but I kept up with it. They've been supportive, like the family is just what they do, but of course my family likes to joke around a lot, so they've been like poking and prodding me this whole time, but the more I like get serious about the activities, I see like they are trying to pick up like a couple of stuff I do and like changing their habits. Like the thermostat used to be at like 75 every day, and now it's like at 69. Everybody's like wearing hoodies at home and stuff, so that's pretty cool.
So one of my biggest supports was actually my work crew. When they found out what I was doing, they thought it was awesome. I had a friend named Chandler who, when I told him about it, he's like, wow, you're like saving the world, but like just a little step at a time. And I'm like, that's funny that you put it that way. But I mean, it was really, really helpful.
One of my oldest sister is vegetarian, so we've kind of bonded on that level of finding new recipes and like cooking with each other. So that's been fun.
My roommates are my family. So there was, I wanted to do the vegan diet, and I cooked the dinners for the house. And so kind of if I was going vegan, everyone was going vegan. And so there was a little bit of pushback with that. Everyone was kind of cool with cutting garbage. That was one thing that everyone was down with figuring out how to do.
So, your job today is basically to help analyze the garbage of the campus, and we've made this a big splash open so people will come in, check it out, and look at what your results are. What are we looking for?
Garbage cans with garbage in it, with possibly recycled cans next to it, take recycling too.
Yes, so that's what we hope for, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes, so what do you think you're gonna find?
A lot of the opposite.
Yes, so I think you're gonna find stuff in the wrong bins?
Yeah.
One, right?
So a lot of what we're doing here is interest in just them learning how to do science. And so part of it is just how to learning how to do data collection, what kind of info you're looking for, what kind of interesting findings or hypotheses you might come out of this.
We went all the way through.
So went over the trash bags over here and recycling bags over there.
So do you want to weigh us first?
Yeah, so that's weigh as best you can.
135 with the bag, so 5 pounds.
5 pounds, so that one's okay. How about proximity? Was there any big differences in which ones came from where? Proximity-wise?
Yes.
Yeah. Part of it is also looking at how we as a campus deal with recycling and trash. What do we throw away? Are there ways that we can reduce our waste stream as a campus? So you want to try to note mostly kind of big problem areas. You're getting a lot of, like here, you're getting multiple recycling items that are not being recycled.
Microwave, that has no recycling bin next to it.
Nice. I put it in there, yeah. This strawberry scissors.
Water bottle. Can I just like pour this on the grass? Professor, can I put this on the grass?
We want to dump it into the
It's water
waste.
though.
I know.
Oh.
Sounds like.
Water bottle, recyclable. Are lids recyclable too? No. 1, 2,
At least I put it on the right spot.
3, 4 silverwares.
That's recyclable. This is. If it's paper. Yeah, it is. The cool thing is we actually have lunch. Sandwich. Just
Well, today we went through the big building over there, and we got all the garbage cans and recycling cans in sight, and we took it all and we brought it back down here so we could see what our garbage habits are and how well we're actually doing at being green, I guess you could say. And what we found out is we're not really as green as we like to think we are. In here we have just a bunch of things that could have been recycled, but now they can't because they've been contaminated with food and stuff like that. So the percentage-wise is roughly around 25% of what we found in our garbage cans was supposed to be recyclable, but it wasn't. One thing that campus could do is make sure that there's a recycling can next to every garbage can, just so that students have the option instead of having to walk down the hallway because we're lazy.
I had students, they had to do a video about some kind of sustainability. And so as a result, the videos were so much fun. We had one group where one student posed as Captain Planet, who helped students to become more sustainable. We had one group that filmed sustainable change through the lens of film noir, so it was very dark and very darkly funny.
They're like, hey, let's maybe do something like more of on the dark side, black and white. And so we were starting to kind of just brainstorm, find funny ideas, and we kind of just got all on board on doing a detective scene. Kind of like criminal, you're a criminal against the environment. And so we kind of just got really on board to making it funny, but also educational. But I guess I kind of just wanted the person watching it to know, is she guilty for what she's done? Did she, for her lifestyle that she's changed, is she really a new person now? And kind of like have that up to the audience to incorporate.
Our class media project that we're working on is we're kind of going off of this idea of like a news reporter. We have a subject, my friend Josh created this character.
I'm playing Chop Sukowski. He's a news reporter for KSUP News.
He's trying to get to the bottom of this breaking news on the new UTEP Carbon Challenge.
We'll be doing some scooter commuting. He's going vegan, and he's going to make his own deodorant.
And so he takes the challenge maybe a little bit too far, but that's kind of what we were trying to go for. Kind of the comedy and the perceptions of the way people see the challenge. It's like this crazy feat, but really Chops just wants to join in and have a good time and see if he can do it.
For my group, we're gonna do a kind of revamp of Captain Planet. So we're gonna have Captain Planet sitting for an interview like this and have him get interrupted by the bad guy and have them basically duke it out over certain environmentally friendly habits like recycling water bottles or recycling paper or like not carpooling and stuff like that. Have them butt heads over ideals about that.
Okay, so I love Jimmy Kimmel, and he does this thing called Live Witness News. Okay. And so people, you just go on the street and ask people this question, and so we're taking that and forming it into what is a carbon footprint and how are you reducing it. So we've been asking a lot of people around campus what first was a carbon footprint and then how are they reducing it. A lot of people know, which I did not expect. So next week, our mission is to go to a shopping mall and see the difference in their take on what a carbon footprint is and if they care or not.
For this challenge, I think that it got students thinking about sustainability truly in a new way. They really were learning as they were making these videos, which for me was the most rewarding.
In our class, we talk about philosophy, but we also talk about the ways that you value things as a kind of, it's not just an intellectual process, but it's an emotional process. And so in our classes, we do some exercises called contemplative exercises, where students go into a more kind of reflective space than sort of the purely academic critical space. And so one of the goals of this class is always to encourage students to experiment with that way of knowing and see kind of what arises for them. So they do contemplative reflections every week. Part of that is that they have, at the beginning of the quarter, they plant a seed, and that becomes described as their non-human teacher. Any seed will do. Hold the seed in your hand. Notice any colours, its patterns, its texture. Feel the weight and temperature. Notice how it feels in the palm of your hand and in between your fingers. Now, close your eyes. Where did the seed come from? What is the potential in the seed? We can become really fond of our favourite place or a favourite animal, and to actually, it's really easy to get all kind of nebulous and intellectually removed, but to actually sit there and investigate and experience that sense of relationality. I think if you don't do that when you're talking about the non-human world, then there's something missing. You can't really talk about a relationship with the natural world purely intellectually, I think. At least if you do, it's impoverished. It's an impoverished investigation.
So tonight we're going to welcome 8 writers. Don't be scared, it's not a long reading. 8 writers to perform works that respond to what I think we all feel like is a really unique moment, and I guess I would just say, since it's an Eco-Poetry Night, in our species' history.
The Eco-Poetics event is for now just an annual reading that's going to happen during the month of Frackdown, which is during the month of November. So I invited 2 authors from Seattle, Emily Johnston and Drew Dillhunt. I wanted to bring them from Seattle, but I wanted it to feel like a reading in Tacoma by people around Tacoma. And there were student voices that I really trusted.
When climate change denial, I think we're kind of at this turning point where climate change denial is something that's, I think, fading away. Maybe we can talk about that at the end of the reading. Maybe not. I don't know. I hope it is.
Okay, so climate denial and I.
So my article is titled, "The NRA Becomes the NRAACC, National Rifle Association Against Climate Change." Today, the National Rifle Association decided to add to its core values. They began with "Protect America's Rights" and have since added "Protect America's Lands."
We started off a relationship when I first heard about climate change because it was kind of okay, what am I going to do about it?
They will henceforth be known as the National Rifle Association Against Climate Change. CEO Wayne LaPierre says he is avidly against fracking and attends protests in his free time. Rather than restrict laws on fracking and deep-sea drilling, LaPierre suggests they be banned altogether. Where the planet's health is concerned, he says, we can't lose precious time debating legislation that won't work.
I was thinking about the type of people that I grew up with that would totally join the NRA, and like what would happen if all of a sudden they all accepted that climate change was happening, or if someone like a big leader in that community was like, we need to do something about climate change.
LaPierre says that America shouldn't be worried about the government coming down on them with AK-47s. Rather, when the government succeeds in restricting the gun size of the common man, the covert militias of big oil will make it impossible to change over to a greener energy. Quiet assassinations of millions who oppose these oil giants will happen, and where will your assault rifles be? Your sole line of defense? Confiscated by Big Brother. This is why it is so imperative that the NRAACC fight not only for our Second Amendment rights, but our rights to clean air and clean water.
It'd be like an armed movement against global warming.
The sudden shift in the NRA left many torn on where to stand. Many of its supporters were climate change deniers, but upon seeing how strongly a leader in their community feels about the destruction of our planet, some were willing to change. Robert Ellis, Texas native and former neoconservative climate change denier, says, "When I think about it, I don't know how any patriotic American could stand for the destruction of our world and, most importantly, our great country. I need my shotgun collection to defend my home and my solar panels to defend my planet."
Doing the satire piece I felt was more helpful than doing any of my other essays combined, because when you're arguing against someone, they're immediately going to get defensive, but when you're making them laugh, what is there to be defensive about?
At the end of the course, students submitted their worksheets and how much carbon weight they had lost, and cumulatively it came just shy of 300,000 pounds of carbon emissions. Is the equivalent to removing 28 passenger cars from the road for 1 year.
I actually went over. It was over 5,000.
8,800 carbon pounds lost.
So an estimated around like 6,000 pounds, I think we did the math.
I ended up, my goal didn't reach 5,000, because I knew I just wasn't gonna be able to do it. But I was able to get pretty darn close to my goal. I think it was around 3,500.
What I thought was kind of neat by that was that you could see actual results, and also that it sort of underlined that individual action isn't important, but then when you sort of add it up and see the effect of that collectively, it's more encouraging. You feel like your little drop in the ocean, maybe when you all do it, makes a bit more of a splash.
About 3 things that I focused on. One was trying to cut my carbon footprint by driving. That one was achieved by me.
I started making my own toothpaste. I also tried making deodorant, didn't like it, so I went back to my own deodorant.
I had showered for 5 minutes usually.
That was also hard.
Yeah.
I realized I don't need to wash my clothes as often as I did. And plus, I don't have to buy as much clothes now because I don't wash them as often and they don't get ruined.
The vegetarian part of my challenge was actually a success. I went 2 months without eating any meat. I was surprised. I was actually genuinely surprised that I was able to get through that.
I definitely ate chicken last night though, and I felt really guilty about it.
No, it's
but,
okay.
Yeah.
I still haven't eaten meat. I was really...
When's the last time you had meat?
Like September.
Apparently eating meat, like 2 of the 3 meals is almost 700 pounds a meal.
Because meat takes up so much energy, it actually takes 660 gallons of water to produce 1/4 pound of beef.
The thing about any classroom exercise, I don't like classroom exercises that are just for class. I want them to be able to do something meaningful with it that isn't just turning in the paper at the end of the day and then they're done. And so the Carbon Challenge has that potential of actually, it already takes it outside the classroom and affects changes that will have positive impacts for sustainability.
What practices do you think you'll continue?
Probably eat vegan 2 days a week still. Probably change my driving habits a little bit, step off the gas a little bit. I might keep up with the toothpaste. I actually like it now. At first I hated it, but now it's okay.
The meat.
The meat?
Yeah, and my sister she's just recently has been really into healthy eating and for her husband and her kids, she has 4 girls, and we've been agreeing on a lot of it. I feel like maybe we'll both become vegetarian within time. That's my goal.
Biking to work will still be something that I'll be looking forward to doing. I still love it. I love doing it. It just makes me feel better. And also losing weight is a wonderful thing.
Putting food scraps in the yard waste bin, that's a really easy change to keep going with. And I really enjoy the CSA the fruit and veggies that we get, and I don't eat as much meat, and I don't think I need to eat as much meat as I did before the challenge. And so there's some things that but I feel like I need to adjust a little more slowly.
I'd like to wean myself off meat if I can. I think maybe going from 70 to 0 and trying to do that every day was too much.
Advice for future students, I'd say just start small and build from there. It's not as hard as you make it seem to be. It's not like I'm farming now or anything. I'm doing the same things, just using less and making more stuff for myself.
When I told my family I was gonna do this, and when I told my friends I was gonna do this, they were like, that just sounds hard and unpleasant and not fun, but it actually is a lot of fun to figure out ways to do these things.
To believe that you're able to make the change has to be the mindset in which you need to do to go into this challenge.
I'd say don't make a change that you don't want to make for a lifetime. I mean, the point of it is to do something that's not just to better yourself for 2 months or the quarter, but to try and enhance your life, your wellness, and also enhance the wellness of the environment.
The one thing I'd say is, honestly, the system is built for humans to pollute currently. If you want to eat, you use plastic containers and things like that. If you want to get somewhere, the system's really set up to make it easy to drive. We're swimming upstream a little bit because we're teaching students, 1, how to be critical, but 2, how to begin to navigate a world that invites them to pollute and invites them to use fossil fuels.
But I would love to see more of it tied to turning into the next stage of affecting policy changes or coming up with solutions for campus. So teaching the students, how would you make that change? That's what I would like to see in the future of this is taking the data that you get from that and building it into the next stage of students becoming more active and involved and learning how the system works to fix it, not just identifying where the problems are.